All right. So what we're going to do today, we've done truth and beauty. We're going to do despair next. Real quick, let's look at the dashes and capitalization and the stanza type that we have going on here. This is not super exciting, but it should be somewhat interesting. Okay, how many lines does Emily Dickinson usually use in her stanzas? Four. Okay, stanza is like a poetic paragraph. It's a simple thing. Okay, just keep it like that, like a music. All right. She does two things that people talk about most when it comes to just the text. She capitalizes words, and she uses a dash for her punctuation. Okay? And I've put some links up here, and I'd like you to look at them later tonight. Maybe at the end of this class, I'll give you some time to do it, because we're going to start with the next poem first. But I'd like you to look at these links. These 3 links that I put up here. I might put a couple more up there. But they're not difficult to read. Okay, they're not difficult to read. And what it is different people's, the same way that her poems are very easily interpreted in different ways, people have interpreted the reasons she uses capitalization and dashes. Okay? And meter and different things that she uses, but mainly those two things. So I found some simple ones. They're not too difficult for you to click on and just take a read. And I'll explain what she uses, why she maybe does this. There's all kinds of reasons. One says that maybe she uses dashes because at the time, female writers, when they wrote letters, would use dashes instead of periods, which were called full stops then, because they didn't want to stop their sentences like this. They wanted to continue their sentences like this. Okay? Others say she just used them because she used them in different ways because they maybe took you from one place to another without stopping too quickly. Others say that it was just something that looked pretty for her. It was just something superficial. That's usually not agreed to. Most people believe she had reasons. Many people believe she had different reasons for using them in different places. It was just her weird little way of punctuation. Whatever it was, it seems to have worked, because people usually now love the way she uses them. If you really analyze the poetry and you look at where she puts the dashes, it's really interesting. The other one is capitalization. And what you'll read in some of these is there was a German language thing at the time that basically whenever you used a noun of sorts, you would capitalize it in your writing. And they say that basically they took that from her letter writing and transferred it to a poetry. Other people say, no, that can't be true because it's not all nouns. There are times when she capitalizes verbs and adjectives and things like that. Most people believe that she does it, she capitalizes certain words when she wants you to know they're important. Okay? So in our case, the one with the bird and everything, we talked about the walk being capitalized because it's something important. That's where the bird was walking. For some reason, that was important to her. Okay, when we get to certain poems, you'll see the same things happen. In any case, you can read about that on your own afterwards. We'll talk about that more later. The next poem we're going to read is Despair, and that's number 510. And this one is a little bit more difficult. It's got some references in it to different things. So we're going to have to use the computers to find out what certain words mean.
510?
510, yeah. It's on page 1891. I'm sorry, 1181. 1181. I was looking at the date. Okay, we ready? I'm going to read this one. It's a little long. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For her, this is kind of long. All right, everybody got it? Here we go. It was not death, for I stood up, and all the dead lie down. It was not night, for all the bells put out their tongues for noon. It was not frost, for on my flesh I felt Sirocco's crawl, and I can't pronounce that, I apologize. Sirocco, maybe? Nor fire, for just my marble feet could keep the chancel cool. And yet it tasted like them all, the figures I have seen, set orderly for burial, reminded me of mine, as if my life were shaven and fitted to a frame, and could not breathe without a key, and 'twas like midnight sun, when everything that ticked had stopped, and space stares all around, or grisly frosts first autumn morns repeal the beating ground, but most, like chaos, stopless, cool, without a chance or spar, or even a report of land to justify despair. is that about? Okay, she starts off by doing something. She starts off by describing. In this case, we're not talking about a cute bird. We're not talking about these two characters, these two interesting characters that are symbols of life or whatever, like beauty and truth or something, okay? She's describing something that's happening to her, I think. In the first part, she says, it wasn't death. Why wasn't it death? Look at the first two lines. It was not death, for I stood up. If I was dead, if you're dead, are you able to stand up? Oh, okay. That'd be a bad zombie movie. But she's saying it wasn't death, so whatever it wasn't death because I stood up. And all the dead lie down. Okay, if I was dead, I'd be lying down. It couldn't have been death. Okay, it was not night, for all the bells put out their tongues for noon. It wasn't night. It wasn't the darkness. We don't know what it is, but whatever it wasn't the darkness. It wasn't death. It wasn't darkness because... Exactly, okay. So it said, it wasn't night because all the bells, you know what a bell is, right? Look at the bells like this. Look at my hand. Bells, you ring them like this, right? And inside the bells, there's a little thing, I forget what it's called. Okay, but she's saying all the bells put out their tongues. She's calling those little things on the inside that make the actual noise, the tongues. And she's saying it was noon. The bells rang, and in that time, you didn't have clocks like this so much. Not everybody had clocks like this, so that the churches would ring their bells at certain hours. Some hourly, and some... That's why your little speaker thing, when it goes ding, 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 it only goes to like 4, I think. So it's like 4 o'clock all day, but it would have rang the amount of hours it was, whatever time it was. And people all over nearby would have known, okay, it's noon, time to have lunch. Okay, so she says here, though, it was not night, for all the bells put out their tongues for noon. So it wasn't night because the bells were ringing for noon. It was not frost, for on my flesh I felt Scirocco's crawl. Now let's look down below. What does it say with that little footnote? It's number 2. Hot, oppressive winds from North Africa. So she says it wasn't frost because I felt this hot, oppressive wind that they have only in North Africa. I felt Scirocco's crawl. So it wasn't because I was too cold or it was frosty. You know what frost is, right?
Yes.
Okay, it wasn't frost because I felt warm. I felt like such a warm African wind kind of. It was almost as warm as that African wind. So it wasn't frost. Nor fire, meaning not fire, for just my marble feet could keep a chancel cool. What's a chancel? It says at the bottom, part of the church that contains the choir and the sanctuary. In a church, a Christian church that she would have known, you would have had, you've probably seen it in movies, like when someone's getting married or something like that, there's the rows of people like this, right? Yeah. And then you get up and there's a little bit of steps, and you kind of walk up the steps, and then there's a choir, section for choir on either side, a little bit more of an aisle, and then there's a little area, and that's called the sanctuary, and that's where the priests and the little people helping them, they do their little stuff, and there's a big altar in there. Okay? And she said, it's not fire, nor fire, for just my marble feet could keep a chancel cool. So, it's not fire because she calls her feet marble feet. Have you ever felt marble? What is marble? What is marble?
No.
What do you call marble in Chinese?
It's kind of like a stone.
Yeah, it's a stone.
It's a material of water.
Material, yeah, it's a stone.
Decorate the
It's usually used in very rich places like marble, okay? And so she's saying, if you ever touch marble, unless it's been heated up or something, it's usually pretty cold. Yeah, smooth and cool. And she says, my feet, marble, she would have known, felt cool. It wasn't the heat, it wasn't the fire, because my marble feet could keep a chancel cool. My marble feet could keep a whole area of the church cool. Even though all these people are walking around, my feet are so cold, it can't be fire. Okay? So we don't know yet what we're talking about, though. And yet, it tasted like them all. Okay, does she really believe, is she really saying, when she says taste, what does she think she means? It tasted like them all. It tasted like fire. It tasted like frost. It tasted like death. And it tasted like night. Does she really mean taste? Can you taste night? No. Can you taste fire? Maybe. I don't know. That would be probably the hardest one. Can you taste frost? I don't think you can taste it, you could feel it. So these are what feelings, I think. It tasted like the most. She's being poetic. Okay, so it felt like death, night, frost, and fire. But it was none of them. Because she could stand, she could feel a hot wind, her feet were cool. Okay? And yet it tasted like them all. The figures I have seen set orderly for burial, reminded me of mine. The figures I have seen set orderly for burial reminded me of mine. Okay. She's talking about some kind of figures that she has seen that were set up orderly for someone who's going to be buried, put in the ground. Or they died, they're going to put them away. Okay? And she's seen them, and it feels like they were for her own. They reminded me of mine. As if my life were shaven and fitted to a frame. Okay, what does it mean to be shaven? What do you do when you shave something? What do you use? What do you use when you shave something? Scissors or a knife, like a razor. Razor, okay? Okay, so what she's saying is, it was what did she say? As if my life were shaven, like someone was shaving parts of her life off. It was as if someone were taking parts of her life and fitted to a frame. You know what a frame is, right? Yeah. So taking pictures of her life and fitting them into a frame. Okay? And could not breathe without a key, and 'twas like midnight sun. It was like someone was taking her life and cutting it up and putting it into a frame, and she couldn't breathe without like a key opening up or something. And so far, we're just making sense of this, okay? We don't know for sure. And it's almost like she couldn't breathe without a key. All right? And what did she say? And 'twas like midnight. And to her, it felt like midnight. Not like noon. We know it's noon, but it felt like midnight. And midnight isn't just dark. Midnight is also symbolic. What is midnight symbolic of? You know what I mean by symbolic? It has other meanings. What would midnight symbolize? Would it be a good thing, a bad thing? Usually a bad thing, a dark thing, a bad thing. Death, sadness, silence. You can argue that, but if you think of like our culture, when we get to midnight, it's like the darkest time of the day. So, you know, this is when the vampires come out and things like that. And this is where all these bad stories come from, or midnight. You never have like a love story that starts at midnight. It's usually in the spring.
Did you see the movie Midnight in Paris?
No. You've seen a lot of movies, I think.
That's wonderful.
Okay. But in any case, she says it felt like midnight. When everything that ticked, okay, she's talking about midnight, when everything that ticked had stopped. At midnight, everything stops, and space stares all around. Or grisly frosts first, autumn morns repeal the beating ground. Grisly means very awful colds, first autumn mornings, repeal the beating ground. She feels like everything has stopped. And she feels cold, like the worst cold possible, and yet she's not cold. And she can feel the beating ground, the repeal of the beating ground, meaning the beat, the feeling of the beating ground. But most like chaos, stopless, cool, without a chance or spar. She's talking about a boat now. A chance or a spar, parts of a boat, or even a report of land. And a report of land would be that guy that you ever see in a cartoon. There's always a guy like at the top of the boat. It's on a little round circle thing. And he's got a little eyeglass like this. And if he sees land, he goes, "Land ahoy!" or something like that. He's always looking for land in the boat. Anyway, that would be the guy that yells about land. She says, but like chaos, stopless, cool. It goes on forever, chaotic, without a chance or a spar, without a thing that holds the ship, the sails and everything. Or even a person, a report of land. Even a person looking for a report of land. It's like hopeless. She's in this like boat that's never ending of chaos. All right, to justify despair. And that is the key to the whole poem. The last line. What is the last word in the last line? Despair. Despair. And what does despair mean? Look it up. Look it up. Helpless. It has a lot of meanings. Hopeless. The feeling of hopelessness. When you feel despair, you feel hopeless. You studied all night, you look at the test, and nothing that you studied is on the test. Oh my God, the despair you must feel, right? Okay, so it's that kind of thing. You don't know what you're going to do. Your family dies. You have no money. Nobody's offering to help you. What do? You fight, but even if you're fighting, you try to get a job, you find a place to sleep, you find food and stuff like that. Still, when you have free time, when you have that moment to sit down, you're probably going to feel a lot of despair. Okay? And I think that she's describing despair. And she's describing the feeling of despair. Does that make sense? Okay. In this one, she uses a lot of different words that we don't understand, words that they would have probably known back then. Some of them, I wouldn't guess a normal person would know, like Sirocco's crawl. You would have to know that was an African wind. I don't think people in North America would know much about African winds back then, unless they were well read. Dickinson was probably very well read. They would know about the Christian and the church kind of things. They would know about the bells. But she's describing everything. You know what it reminds me of? Is not just despair, but like an anxiety attack. Because she talks about, to me, I think it's her chest, maybe, that's doing the beating. Have you ever felt so bad you just stop and you can feel your own heart beating?
Yes.
Don't. You're like nervous. It's not just beyond nervousness. And you can't move. There's just nothing you can. Yeah, extremely nervous, paralyzed with fear. And I think she's describing that. I'm not cold, I'm not hot, I'm not dead. It feels like someone's just taken my whole life and pushed it all together into a frame. My heart's beating. It feels like I'm on this boat of chaos and it's just going everywhere, but I'm not moving, and the boat doesn't have anything to guide it, and there's nobody on the boat to tell me when I'm getting close to something. It just feels like a very hopeless thing, and it's what did she say at the very end? To justify despair. Okay, now we have, 20 minutes left or 10 minutes left? 20 minutes left. Okay, again, I'm going to ask you, and I know you're getting tired of this already, but I'm going to ask you one more time to look for analysis of this poem. What is 510 about? So type in 510 analysis, Dickinson. What does this one mean? What have other people said about this? Is there something else I'm missing on this? Or is it just about the feeling of despair? Is this Emily Dickinson, or is it just about the actual emotion? Is there another meaning to this? Are there reasons she uses all these different words? Notice she always includes religion. Not always, but usually she includes religion. And death. And wake up, please. Wake up. Number 510, okay? I'll give you like 15 minutes. We'll talk for 5, and then I'll give you your mini homework.